Hello, and welcome to the Curt and John Talk Tech and AI podcast. I'm your host, Curt Robbins. Please welcome my co host, John Bailey from the Mindset Genesis in sunny Las Vegas.
Hey Kurt, how's it going? Good to be
Hey,
here.
John. We're into that season in northern Ohio where it likes to snow and be windy and cold. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure how happy that makes me. I have these moments where I consider moving back to Henderson, Nevada, but uh,
I
but I'm going to tough it out for a while. Uh,
was
so how
curious
are
when did
things
when did
going for
you
you? Hmm?
when was it that you made that move?
It was about a little over a year ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you already this is your second winter back in that environment, right?
Technically, it is, but
Yeah.
I got cursed by the first winter back was extremely mild.
Mm.
Everybody, or all the locals were like, "Where is the snow?" And I said, "This isn't normal." And they're like, "Oh, you wish, buddy." And so, so
Mm.
yeah, this is more of a typical winter in Northeast Ohio.
Oh wow.
And apparently, I should just be thankful that I don't live closer to Lake Erie because there's this thing, and it's not limited to Lake Erie, called the lake effect, which is, there for all lakes, depending on their physics. And the lake effect, if you live close enough to the lake, and I went to Ohio State, so I had some roommates from Cleveland,
Mm.
and one of them lived close to Cleveland, like let's say 10 minutes from the lake, and the other one lived about 20 minutes south of there. And the guy closest to the lake would get like a foot of snow, and the guy only 15 or 20 minutes south of him would get like 2 inches of snow.
Oh wow.
So I'm actually pretty lucky that I don't live closer to the lake, or I'd just be, I wouldn't be talking right now, right? I'd be outside shoveling snow just to clear the driveway.
No fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Doing good. It's not, reportedly it's not that cold.
Good.
Here. Oddly even warm today. I think the only anomaly that maybe just kind of is like it's weird because like there's not much happening here, I guess, unless we're like in massive heat waves or freakish snow that might happen here, and it has, right? I think you've been here maybe when we've
Yeah.
gotten the random snowstorm, but for the
It
most
definitely
part
gets
everything's
cold in the
quiet.
desert sometimes. Yep.
Yeah, but for the most part everything's quiet. I did see that California just an early or late part of 10 a.m., about 10:45 or so, like that started incurring a series of earthquakes in Northern
Oh,
California, Humboldt
wow.
County
Oh,
area.
Northern
One,
Cali. Okay.
yeah, one of them
Just
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 off the
south of,
coastline was like 7.3.
just south of Oregon. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that whole area has been rocking pretty much for the last 3.5 hours.
Oh, wow. I
Um, Pretty
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah, I have friends in Northern California, so wishing the best for them.
Hmm.
Um, it is a shaky area, I remember when Northern California, I lived there for a year on a job project, and
Hmm.
in fact, it was in Humboldt County, and I remember feeling earthquakes, like these micro tremors, when I was in bed. That's when I felt
Mm.
them the most.
Hmm.
Just when you're like totally still, horizontal, your body's kind of in this place where you can feel the tremors. And sometimes they were very subtle. But I grew up in Ohio, so we don't have earthquakes in Ohio. So I was like, okay, this is not normal,
Yeah.
right? Like it wasn't my imagination, in other words. And gosh, that probably happened just in the course of 11 months there. That probably happened dozens of
Oh
times.
wow. Yeah.
It never shook stuff off the wall. I remember I had a friend in Los Angeles. I lived in LA for 4 years. And right after I moved from Northern California to Southern California for business. And uh, I had a friend who, in one of the famous earthquakes, and I can't remember the year, uh, but she was thrown out of her bed and hit the wall on the other side of her bedroom.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Wow, that's intense.
just, yeah, very Hollywood like, right? So, So these earthquakes that we hear about all the time, and we just kind of are like, whatever, another earthquake. They're actually kind of a big deal, right? And when it shakes your house hard enough to knock stuff off the walls and destroy things, that's a big deal. So I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, funny videos of people. I think I saw a bar where like all the alcohol, like some bars they have like all that alcohol on the glass
Hmm.
shelving behind the bartender. Well, that was all on the floor, and so yeah, different
Uh,
interesting events happening there. So I was like, well, I guess quiet here, but not too
it
far
makes
neighborly. They're going through some stuff.
Yeah, it makes me sad when I hear about the destruction of good liquor. I'm going to have a shot of whiskey to that one.
In memoriam of. But yeah, man, everything
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
otherwise everything's good,
Yep.
man. Everything's great. It's a Thursday,
Good.
it's
Good.
nice. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks for putting up with my shenanigans earlier in the day. For listeners, John and I had a recording session on Spaces scheduled for earlier in the day, and I wasn't able to do the capture. Like I wasn't picking up anything, and technically we had problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I just was like frustrated, and John's a trooper because I was like, no, this is not working. I'm not doing this today, and we got it worked out,
Figure it out.
and and so yeah, we're gonna. This is our last one on X Spaces, and we're gonna go to a different capture platform because I was having to do a real time capture, but you turned me on to the fact that there are some services that third party services that supposedly allow you to capture an X space and, well, to download it basically, right? They like somehow they have the tech to allow you to download it, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. And I was seeking that natively
Mm-hmm.
within spaces and wasn't finding it. And so I literally just kind of gave up. I'm like, well, they don't have that feature, so I'm going
Screw
to
it.
have to do something else. Right.
Yeah.
Um, and it turns out, yeah, you turned me on to the fact that there's a lot of third party services out there that can lend a lot of functionality to some of these basic services that we take advantage of. So, yeah. So anyway, to the listeners, we're not going away. I mean, you don't really care whether you have a four-cylinder or six-cylinder or eight-cylinder engine in your car, right? Most American consumers just don't care. And I don't think any of our listeners really care how we capture this. So John and I are going to figure out a solution that works for us, and we'll keep dropping one every week.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And then, we talk about AI, we talk about tech. Some of these things
Hmm.
I think that are just no brainer. Why can't I have this, just a
Yeah.
big red download button if I wanted to download my own
Yeah.
episode if I'm the owner of it? But after digging into this a bit this morning, after that, there's some concerns, copyright infringements, and different things. I mean, I think that as the owner of the content, you're not really in that. But the other part, I think, is for example, right on TikTok, if you make a TikTok and you wanted to share that video somewhere else, there is a download button, but when you download it, it has the watermarks of the TikTok
Right,
logos,
right, right.
that one
Understandably,
start on the
that's
left
fair.
and start on the right. So it's like, yeah, I guess you can't, if you make it there and you have it there, you can't really. They don't want you to take it to another place. They want you to keep it at that place. And so maybe that was the reasoning behind X's inability to just easily download it. And even those, I don't, and again, when I looked at the instructions, maybe that's just when you're first creating a space, like that you have to like change that in the settings. I don't know. But again, third party resources, really cool. We'll flush those out.
Yep.
If not, we'll go the old fashioned way and check out some recording on Zoom or Anchor and
Yeah.
those other things I showed you. We'll
A
flush
lot
it
of
out.
ways to do it. A lot of ways to do it. And,
Cool.
it's unfortunate that the new management of X, formerly Twitter, does not want to give us something that dozens, if not hundreds, of other competitors give us. That download button that you described. Yeah, the big ass download now button, right?
Yeah, for
Red
sure.
with white relief text. Yeah, it's really simple. But
Yeah.
okay, we don't get that. That's all right. We've got options, and we'll go forward anyway. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Moving
So
on.
today, Curt and John are talking tech about workstations. I don't know what your computer workstation looks like, folks, but John and I have some pretty elaborate workstations, and we want to share those with you because we know they improve our productivity, and they improve our efficiency, and they help make our clients happy. So we're going to share those with you. John's got a really interesting topic. One of my majors in college was psychology. So you want to talk about dopamine stacking. And that really
Mm.
kind of, I said, what? That's not, yeah, that's not a typical AI topic. So I'm all down for that. And then there's something a little lighter. What are we watching? Like I, I'm I only do streaming video. I don't do cable TV. I don't endure commercials. I just like make me crazy. Like yeah, if I never hear another Burger King commercial in my life, that's a good thing. Um, and
Right.
and their burgers are great, but it's not about their burgers. It's about the commercial.
Hmm.
So we're going to talk a little at the end about what we're watching. So let's start out with workstations, John. I mean,
Cool.
I've seen a video of your workstation, and for listeners, the video that John sent me was not to show off his workstation. He was just kind of well, you were playing a video for me that you had produced with synthetic. It was a synthetic reading using your voice graph to read something that you had provided to the AI tool. And that was really cool.
Mm.
But I got to admit, I got distracted by your workstation and I had to play it twice because the first time I'm like, oh, look at that cool ass monitor. Look at this. Look at that. I literally didn't, yeah, I didn't hear any of it the first time around. So let's talk about workstations. And are we just tech nerds who want more technology in our house, or are we truly making ourselves more efficient with these workstations?
It's a good question. Yeah, a lot of this. I think the workstation itself is really good as a backbone of your productivity. I think that I've had so many office spaces over the last 20 years, just
Hmm.
from being in an office and or being in an office that has a view, or being in an office that feels like you're in a ice box, to being in an open floor office where there's a lot of people, a lot of talking, a lot of chatter, to then being like in my home spaces. And I find that
Where you have total control.
total control.
Sorry to interrupt, but yeah,
Yet
when it's the employer, you take a job like a
Mhm.
salaried position or a contract position, and you go to the employer's physical facility, right? Their
Mhm.
headquarters or their satellite office, and you get what they give you.
Pretty
And
much.
as you've described, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good, but you have zero control over that. But when you do it at home, you create the workspace that you want, and you invest what you want. And I think it's a very different situation.
It is a much different situation, because I'm definitely somebody that likes to listen to a lot of music when I'm working, or well, just really listen to a lot of music. And so I find that if I'm in public workspaces, an office or a shared floor with people in an open space concept, I gotta wear headphones. I don't like wearing headphones all day
Yep.
long. I don't really like being kind of isolated, and then I have to wear kind of the over the ear, because being having
So
AirPods in your
yep.
ear all day long is a little uncomfortable. And there's just like this, there's this rhythm you have to find, and mind you, you got to find it. I think that first and foremost about a workstation is you're going to change it a lot. At least like me, I've changed mine so many times. Like, is it pointing south at the right, directional degree? Like, it's serious, because I feel like it's an energy thing. And so yeah, I found that,
Well,
the go ahead.
it's a comfort thing, right? It's like it's very subjective. When I think about computer workstations, I think about subjectivity and the
Mhm.
fact that what works for you and what works for my neighbor down the street and what works for me, they're totally different. So
Yeah.
ironically, I published an article recently on LinkedIn about the ultimate computer workstation,
Hmm.
and I felt a little guilty about the title, quite honestly. It felt clickbaitish because there is no ultimate. What is perfect for you might totally frustrate me, and it's really so anyway, I just wanted to hit on what you're talking about here is pinning what works for you. So don't take what we say and what others say too seriously, because it might not work for you, right?
Yeah, and not even work for you, like even in that moment. So there's a lot of times where I do have this really nice workstation I've put together with and we'll talk about, what that setup is. But then I've actually moved my house around a lot to the idea where that sometimes I'm also okay with sitting at the kitchen table or dining room table, or sometimes I'm even in the kitchen and I'm kind of like jamming at my
Yeah,
counter while
yeah,
cooking something, or I have like a lap pad. And so sometimes, and it's not about like sitting and watching TV. Sometimes I just want to be on the couch, and I have some French doors, so they kind of look out into my backyard. And it's sometimes in the morning, at least in springtime, for example, lots of birds, and I had some bird feeders out there, so I kind of watch nature, be out, be close to my outside, but also sit at my couch and be comfortable. And so I have like this lap desk station that I put over my lap, and I might knock out an hour of work there. It depends on, they think, the project. And that's
yeah,
what is big about my work is, I have so I power everything by a 2020 MacBook Pro. But it's finally a smaller one. I've gone it from everything from the big 27-inch iMac meat station to just like meat and potatoes to I lugged around a 15-inch for a while. I'm gonna tell you, those things are just heavy and obnoxious. At least the old
they are.
ones.
I have one.
The
Yeah, they are.
the old ones, because they, and I missed that they had so many ports, right? You had like two USB ports, you had USB-C
Yep.
port, and you had a lightning port, you had even so the Ethernet port, you had a lot of ports, but it's a heavy machine, right? So 15, you get in that 15 or 17-inch, you're lugging around a pretty solid piece of weight. And so I think
Yeah.
that after around the pandemic, and it probably forced me to be more remote and at home than I ever was, or that if I did travel, I didn't want to bring a lot of stuff with me. I finally slimmed down to the 13-inch MacBook Pro, and that thing powers to. And I use a hub that's powered, so I wouldn't say that. I guess that it powers it more like I have a powered hub that connects from my laptop, and of course the video card still has to power the other monitor or two. I have two other monitors. I have two 27-inch monitors. One is a curved wide monitor, and then the other one's just a well, it sits at vertical orientation, but it's a wide, not curved. Both, high quality, high refresh rate, and that 4K display. And sometimes I thought, like, when I first bought them, because like, for example, my wide curved is like a gaming monitor. Technically,
It's a
people use it
beautiful
more for,
monitor. I love it.
yeah, and people use it more for gaming. I like it because it gives me a lot of depth when I do like video editing, or I'm working on imagery, I'm working on
Cool.
stuff like that. It's really really brilliant light, nice color, and I kind of just like that curved feel to that one. And that's like my center monitor. And then I have that nice wide vertical orientation monitor that, if you ever sat in an office with a coder or developer, they're usually running code on one of those while they're, plugging away in their central monitor. Well, I use it for more like what we do, which is like copywriting, and or looking at long form type of material. For example, when I'm designing my website, I know there's a lot of rules right above the fold and this and that. Well, I like to look at the kind of like the whole flow in a more like a lot at once, like almost the whole page, as if it was scrolled down like two, three sections.
Right.
And so that monitor really comes in handy for that. Or I can stack a bunch of weird optimizing stuff there, right? Like my email and maybe a Slack channel, Slack and Discord. I can put those all
Right.
stacked on that one, and I can see all my chats at once. Weird stuff, right? And I've learned this from just so many different other jobs where I needed to kind of bounce in between out of like different optimizations for those kind of jobs. There's a time where I was heavy in a job that required a lot of chatting back and forth and a lot of like inter office communications. And so having that up and available sometimes was
Right.
difficult when you were in smaller screens. Vice versa, working on photos, video, websites, stuff like that, you need kind of something really big, a lot of real estate to kind of see all those details. Otherwise, you're zooming in constantly on your little
Right.
13-inch monitor. So I found that those work, but it doesn't mean that at the same time, when I'm not doing all that heavy stuff, maybe I'm just writing an article, or maybe I'm just checking my email, or or I want to like not focus on so many stuff. I just detach and go sit somewhere else. So it's
Right.
like it's complicated because like I have this beautiful workstation because sometimes you'll find me in some days where I don't even plug in. I'm somewhere else in the house, and so
Right.
it's just, but it's great to have that set up that way. But it was interesting earlier because you said like it's a comfortable place. To me, actually, I like a good mix of like, yeah, it's comfortable, like in a sense that at least it's not like distracting and it's pleasing aesthetically. But for the most part, I don't really like a comfortable workspace. Like I my chair's
Interesting.
upright the whole time. Like it's at the highest upright setting and it's the highest up. Like it has all these like tilt features and all that. I don't use any of that stuff. I love the back, the back support pillow or whatever that's like kind of hard and keeps me forward, like posturized and um and as I want to hear about yours, which is more like in you if you have that standing desk option. So like I haven't really had a standing automatic desk, but I do have these risers, and every now and then I get wild and I go, you know what, I just want to stand for like a week. I lift my desk up on these risers and I
Well,
remove the
that's
office
interesting.
chair, and then I get
Yeah.
tired of it because when you want to actually sit down, you're like, I can't sit down, I have to go get a bar stool.
Right.
But
Right.
but I've always been intrigued by the up and down automated ones, but at the same time, I also found that I might be limited because two things. One, I have a really nice clips speaker system, and to move that up and down would require me to kind of like give some slack into my cabling. And if any of you guys really know about workstations, right, cabling's a big deal.
Right. Right.
um wrapping and running all your wire lines so they're nice and
Slack
neat and clean.
sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. and then of course like anything else I have around it, maybe something on the wall or something, you have to kind of like
Right. Right.
accommodate for that stuff. And I always found that like as man, and then the real estate, I like a big like workstation where I could put my keyboard in front of me like a little bit, and I have a nice area to write. 'Cause I, believe it or not, I still write pen and paper, and or stuff like that. So it's weird. Like and so I've always wanted one of those automatic ones, but they don't make them really wide and big. They're kind of more minimal, right?
Well, um, I went with a model that's 60 inches wide,
Mm-hmm.
but they offer a larger. They offer it in three or four sizes, and the largest one is 72 inches. So I could have gotten another 12 inches, another 6 inches on each side. And, that's not a ton, but it is significant. And I thought about it and I strategically decided to go with the 60-inch elevator desk. I call them elevator desks or standing desks
Perfect.
by
Yes.
popular parlance, but because I chose a monitor stand for very similar to you. I have 20 something inch 4K monitors, two of them, but I knew from previous experience how much space that would take if I just put their default stands or even aftermarket stands on the
So
desk,
much.
right? It
Yeah.
would just take so much of my desk. And I said, you know what? I'm actually going to invest the extra money in one of these fancy stands that mounts onto the back of the desk, has a very small, almost zero footprint,
I love it.
and it holds both of these 28-inch monitors, right? Like the desktop consumption is almost zero. Then I wanted LED lights
Mm-hmm.
for when I was doing video conferencing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because especially this time of year when it gets dark at 5 o'clock in so
Mm-hmm.
many places in America. And I was like, oh, that's no good. I can't rely. I have a beautiful window in front of me that during the summer months provides me with excellent natural light throughout most of the business hours of the day, but not this time of year. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, as a professional, I cannot afford to sacrifice the LED lights, but I did the same thing with them. I went with the model that just clamped onto the back of the desk or the side of the desk and took literally zero desktop space, right? In fact, they even have USB ports built into them, so they're pretty cool. And
Epic. Yeah.
yeah, like, and you have to come up with a solution. But anyway, that's why I went with the 60-inch desk instead of the 72-inch desk. If I
Mm.
could not have done that back mounting for for the monitor mount and the LED lights, I definitely would have gone with a 72-inch desk. So this gets kind of complicated, I mean, working out your workstation requirements it has to do with your budget. It has to do with your preferences. It has to do with your physical orientation. Where's your office, right? Does it get
Mhm.
natural light? Does it not get natural light? Yeah, and you got to take all that into account because nobody wants to waste their money, right? You want to invest in things that are actually going to help your productivity.
Oh, and I know that I've definitely gone through some things where I'm like, I bought it, I kind of played with it for a month or two or whatever, and then I just got tired of it. Like it didn't work and wasn't functional or take up too much real estate. And I've been ballparking the idea of doing what you said or what you done, which is the one that kind of mounts to the back of your desk and brings those monitors up a little higher and then off of the workstation space, which I'm almost sold on that right now just by you mentioning it. And then I'm curious because I know that I've been shopping some light options for the desk that are a little bit more minimal, right? Like I have ring lights, I have all kinds of different lighting
Okay.
things, but when I find
Hmm.
is when I try to really put those on my desk or to illuminate the area, that takes up its real estate itself. And then I was looking at these ones that kind of clip onto the top of your monitors, and I thought those ones might be cool, but I'm curious
Hmm.
what you're using.
I've got some monitors here that, like I say, are LED lights that mount to the desk with, gosh, like an
Like a
inch
boom
footprint.
arm. Oh,
It's yes, and they're on fully articulating arms, and they were expensive. Like
yeah.
two of these. I want one for the left, one for the right.
Hmm.
If you're a true professional and you want to eliminate shadows
Yeah.
for webcasting and such, you're supposed to get three lights, right? And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
third
Key
light,
light.
if positioned properly, gets rid of the shadows. But
Yep.
I will admit I didn't go that far. So I've
Hmm.
got one on the left side of the desk, one on the right side of the desk. I'll give you the name here shortly, and we'll put it into the show notes. But it 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 can be totally dark outside because I have clients on the West Coast, and being in the Eastern time zone, I have to accommodate them. And I literally only have to reach up to the right and left of each of my monitors and articulate the LED light from I keep them pointing at the wall or the ceiling just to give me ambient light. I'm kind of a vampire. I work in the dark, and as long as I can see what's on my screen, why should I really care?
For
And I
sure.
literally only have to flip those lights around, and now they make me look good in a video conference or a webcast. And that was a flexibility that I needed, right? I needed something that if it was totally dark outside and I had no natural light to rely upon, that I could just flip these lights on and it would let the show go on. And they did that. But I'll admit they were like $230 for two of them. so
Wow.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
it's
and I'm seeing that price for on average, I think for some decent ones, low budget. I think I saw lowest maybe, and it might have been some, deals around Black Friday or something, but I think I saw around like $56, but they were marked down from like maybe 80 or something. Or yeah, you're well into the 100 to 135, 140 bracket, which yeah, I'm sure that the build is reliable. It's not like the plasticky kind of like casings and stuff and fidgety hardware inside. Maybe it's got some decent weight to it and some metal more than plastic. I
right.
just, yeah, I've been looking for ones that make sense, and it's cool because like I do get some good natural light in my house. But originally I was kind of like turned around facing more of the natural light, where now I'm more turned with my back towards the natural light, which is cool for me because it's now coming from behind and not in front, but also not good because, well, two things. One, glare on my screen I don't like. And then also, at certain parts of the day. Um, and then, yeah, sometimes it's not really light lit in the face. So cool. I'm gonna look at some stuff. Like I said, I saw some ones that were really just like they clipped onto the top of your monitor, and I thought that wouldn't be that bad.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
a bad solution, not at all,
yeah,
if
looking for
they can
something
do it well.
minimalist.
Yeah,
But yeah, cool.
yeah.
But yeah, that's my setup, man. I think it matters really like highly for professionals to at least. I think there's a noticeable difference in your performance when you're in a good environment or you have everything at your disposal and you're not limited in some way with whatever that job is that you do, right? So I think that, for example, if you're an accountant, my setup might be really good for you because you're able to look at a lot of numbers. I was talking with somebody through a spreadsheet a couple days ago, and they were like, "Yeah, it's hard for me to kind of see like those days, so I had to like make extra cells to kind of keep myself guided. If I scroll on further, there's like a big cohort sheet." And I was like, "Well, I have a 27-inch monitor. I can see it all." I don't, it's like I don't know what to say to that, other than get a bigger monitor because, you know, um, you're limited, right? That's a limitation that I just am not willing to accept when you're trying to output a lot of, content or value in what you're doing. And if you're limited, it just slows you down. It just, it kind of puts you in a box. And so, and I think the last thing that probably like bothers people the most sometimes in my house with my desk space, which is not visibly noticeable, but I have one of those mechanical keyboards, right? So I have one of those clackety 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 like
Hmm.
old because I like it. I think it's actually very tactile. I've had the very sleek, minimal Apple ones from wireless to the 10 key, and I have had all the gaming ones, that are really smooth and light up and have colors, and mine has colors, mind you, but it's like, yeah, I like my keyboard. It's very minimal and but mechanical, and so that would be the only thing I think that you can't notice in the pictures of the video is that it can get loud if I'm really typing up a thing, in my house. So,
Right, right. Well, the brand for listeners that I went with is a Lume Cube,
mm,
Lume Cube. And I'm not even going to tell you the model that I have because they offer a wide variety of models, and many are particular to mobile professionals who, need to capture uh, decent quality, publishable quality video on a beach or in a client's conference room where they have going in, they have no idea what they're going to be dealing with in
mhm,
terms of environmental effects. And but the Lume Cube lights, and I previously had some mobile versions of the Lume Cube lights that I did not go mobile with, that I
mm,
used at home, and they worked really well for me. But like you're saying, every time I set them up for a session, they took a significant amount of my desk space, and I was rearranging everything, and I'm like, this is silly. This is just stupid on my part, right? So when I, redid my workstation back in the spring, I said, okay, let's not make that mistake again. Let's go with something that's permanently affixed and still gives me the results that I want. And the fact that LoomCube offers models that take literally zero desk space, you forget that they're there,
oh
and that's
yeah,
kind of a magical effect. But yet, when you need them, push two buttons and flip the heads, and you're good to go. So that's why I'm really happy with these, because I think as an IT professional, whether if someone asked you, "Are you a remote worker?" and you were like, "No, I am not a remote worker," there's still going to be times where you have to engage in in a webcast or some sort of video conferencing, right? And in my opinion, if you want to do that and look like a professional, you need to get yourself some professional LED lights. You need to make a small investment. I wasn't overly ecstatic about dropping almost $250 on these lights, but damn, every time I use them, it just puts a huge smile on my face. So I feel as if I've made a wise investment. Again, it's very subjective. That's not true for everybody. So I'm not just saying
hmm,
go out and buy these LumeCube lights and suddenly your career will be transfixed. That's not necessarily true, but I do believe that having the right tools for the job can separate the professionals from the amateurs. And I think there's some basic tools that we need to have. And that's really the whole reason we're here right now talking about workstations. Because, okay, how do you do that? Kurt, John, how the heck do you do that? Tell me. So,
yeah,
so
yeah.
this is us telling you.
I think it's good to share light on the things that work, for us. Yeah, and yeah, I think sometimes also you don't need to overthink it. I think, like I said, for a long time, I might have had a lot more things on my desk than I've had now, right? Like I really only truly have whatever I need, which is keyboard, mouse, my laptop, with a stand and two monitors. And I do have external hard drives. I have one that's like a master one that sits on my desk, very sleek, very small. And then I have a couple like travel ones that like usually I keep in a laptop bag or whatever. So like I don't know. I think it's keep it simple, but make sure it works for what you need it for. And
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you know, and if you need that again, if you're doing something that requires the lifting, you're gonna spend a little bit more bucks on it. I was just looking at those loom lights; those are pretty cool. Um, and it makes sense, right? Especially like those round ones, if they can like illuminate the desk, then also you can turn it towards you and kind of like a dual purpose. Then at that point, like I would look at that because again that the area that I've chosen for my house this season for my office space isn't getting a lot of it just there's not a lot of lighting in that area at different times of the day, and so it's like that would be cool to just have on the go
exactly,
to illuminate the space. That's really practical, and that's I think the whole
exactly.
point is to be practical, but also it can enhance your productivity, it can enhance your creativity. And if you're in if your workspace, it's obviously gonna I think it would help your overall job satisfaction if the last thing that you are doing is walking your desk and not hating your workspace and not
Right,
feeling like,
exactly.
oh,
Yeah,
here I
not
am
hating
again.
it.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
you got to walk in like enjoying that place.
Oh,
So,
woe
yeah.
is me, Charlie Brown. Yeah, exactly. And I love the particular model Loom Cube that I have. And again, I'll toss it into the show notes.
Mhm.
Is really high tech. Like when I read the fine print, each one of these lights it has 112 miniature LEDs in it,
Wow.
and it just they just kind of circle the the spherical light, right? And it's very
Hmm.
flat, it's very small, it's shockingly small, but you can completely control it in terms of brightness and color. So so whatever color temperature you want, you can achieve it, and uh, and whatever brightness you can achieve it.
I
So I
have
would,
actually their little, I have the Loom Cube, like the cube, the little small one. Um, that is used to put on like a small rig. So I use it for like my DSLR if I'm shooting video.
yeah,
So I know what you're talking about. Their lighting is really cool, and I love that little cube because it has hot shoe attachments, or I can put it on a
yep,
tripod. It has like little gels and like little filters I can put on and screens to like diffuse the light. It's my most versatile lighting thing, and all of the lights that I have, because me, I did product photography video for 15 years plus,
you
right?
got
And
some
so
stuff in
like
your closet.
I've got some crazy lighting stuff. I have a storage unit that just, I had a buddy one time that gave me a bunch of like studio production light, the old ones that are like, like if you sit under it, you're gonna get a suntan because it's so those
I
are those
know what you're
old
talking
fluorescent.
about, and they're big,
Yeah.
yeah, and they have those
s-
flaps on the
Like,
sides, and yep,
yep, I have those movie studio quality ones. And so like those are in storage where like those things, if you really want to light up a space, I have all of those too. And I mean, I don't have like a 10,000 foot square warehouse where I'm lighting up. So I don't need those most times. So, when I
right.
want to pack a go bag of just like my camera, a few lenses, and a good lighting solution, that little Loom Cube, I know now I'm like, oh, I know this brand. I'm like, I know now why, because
Hmm.
I have the little box one, the little cube that that's so
Yeah,
versatile. So cool.
yeah, that's pretty much what I started out with. And I bought the kit, so I got the tripods, and those are what I had to make room for on my desk. And so now
Hmm.
having the desktop mounts, and they sell this in two models. You can get this as just a desktop stand, or you can get it as the mountable. Um, I appreciate the fact that LoomCube does a very good job of being a prosumer company and catering to both average consumers and also working professionals who depend on these tools to make a living. They do a really good job of catering to both, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Actually, I was checking out all their lighting. And they're not just making workstation lighting. They're not just making photo lighting. They got video lighting. They got all kinds of really cool stuff. They even have like the cool stand lighting, the LED RGB stuff that you can put in your house, like, as a
Right.
lighting up a space. So I'm like, oh yeah. So I'm gonna add that to my Christmas list of things. People asking. But
So
yeah,
there you
we'll
go,
share the
listeners.
links to all this stuff.
So lighting is, well, it's a part of computer workstations we don't talk about a whole lot, right? Like typically we're talking about the computer, the main computer. There might be multiple computers.
Hmm.
Uh, and we talk about the keyboard, we talk about the mouse, and all the computer parts, but we don't typically talk about the LED lighting. Uh, and it's something that's at first I scoffed at the price. I'm like, am I really going to spend $250 just to put lights on my desk? I could do this so much inex- less expensive, right?
Cheaply,
I
yeah.
could, I could just come on, yeah, I could do this for under $100 at Target or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but what results is that going to give me? And I can tell listeners that I personally have been extremely satisfied with the products from LubeCube, and particularly these desk mount lights that I currently have. Just I don't know, they just get the job done. You're busy, I'm busy. Every hardworking IT professional in the industry is busy, and I don't have time to mess around with this crap. I just need to be. Oh crap! I have a video conference with a client in 5 minutes. Right?
Mm.
That's the way it works sometimes,
Yep.
and I need to be able to just walk in and push a couple buttons and flip a couple LED heads, and I'm in business. And boy, that puts a big smile on my face.
Yeah, and then obviously just get right to work. I think also that less you have to fidget with something, like a cheaply made light or something like that to make the light happen. You're just not getting the right angle or something like that. The least I have to do that, the better. I want to be able to
Exactly.
just get to work.
Exactly.
So, really cool thing. I'm gonna geek out on their site a little bit later. I did see some two packs that are not that bad. Cool
So
stuff.
tell me about the rest of your setup. You've got a 2020 MacBook Pro
Hmm.
and wireless keyboard, wireless mouse, which I've gone wireless since it's been available and became reliable, just because it on a desk in a desktop environment it gives me so much flexibility. Like, I used to like s- scrape my I would move my arm and I would accidentally catch a cable, and a mouse would go flying across the room or something. And I'm like, oh crap, I've had too much coffee. But just going wireless is a big deal. And I realized that millions of IT professionals have gone wireless, but millions have also not, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, let's talk a little about your mouse and keyboard and why wireless might be a better way to go.
So my keyboard, I would go wireless. I guess that my keyboard, the only thing is I guess for keyboard at least, it's a pretty stationary object where it's a direct line, and I don't move it as much as the mouse. So I go with a wired keyboard.
Okay.
I've dropped some serious money on some really cool gaming keyboards. Like I used to have the Sidewinder, which was a Microsoft keyboard, and I had that one for years, and it was so it's just cool. I guess it was cool at the time. I could program a bunch of short
Right.
hotkeys, and I had access and control over the brightness and the LED lights inside, and that was pretty high tech advanced because I ran with that thing for years. I'd probably say like 2010. I still have it now. I just don't use it myself. I have it. It's plugged into my kids station that she's using, and so so that's the other thing too. That thing has lasted, yeah, it's 2014. That's lasted 14 years, that keyboard. So, and it's still
Wow.
trucking
That's
along,
great.
no missing keys, no scraped off letters. It's all pretty solid. And I'm
Nice.
and I use my machine. I'm use my stuff like a workhorse. Like I have to have a silicone keyboard thing over my laptop because I use my stuff so much. So anyways, um so the keyboard's pretty basic. I think I think when I finally decided I wanted to go back to a more mechanical keyboard, I looked at all the very expensive ones out there, and I thought, you know what, if I'm gonna buy something really pricey, it's gonna be aesthetically pleasing. And so I do have my eye on a mechanical keyboard that's like a typewriter with the old circle letters and or the circle like keys. And it looks really cool, and I thought that'll be cool later, but I wasn't willing to drop like I think $100 on that keyboard right now. Because I was like, I just need something functional. So my keyboard's nothing special. It's like I think it made me cost me like $30, and it's mechanical, and it's probably from some offshore weird brand on Amazon. Um, but my mouse is important. I do need the mouse, and I think that the good conversation around mice, your computer mouse, is that latency. It's about like what you're using it for. So all those gamers out there, for the most part, I know are wired. Wired, you're going to get the highest refresh rates and
Right. True. Yeah.
response time, and and you need that no lags, no latency, because that's the difference between your
Absolutely.
kill death ratio being at
Yeah.
100% or whatever. So I think that that's when it matters. Everybody else is not a gamer, right? I think you have some flexibility there, because as long as you don't need to have that response time in the way, or a lot of programming, I think you can go very simple. So the reason why I have my mouse, it's actually a Razer mouse, because I
Oh,
have the
that's a
option
good
of,
brand. Yeah, I've
yeah,
never had one
I
of
love
those,
Razer
but I've
brands.
checked into them. They seem like they've really got it down, and that's really popular with the gamers, right?
It is, and I do game, so don't get me wrong. And what I love about this mouse is that I actually do have a cable for it, and it can plug in. So even though it is
Oh, so you can
battery,
go wireless or wired. That's
yeah, and I
nice.
have
That's
I
very
have the
nice.
gold plated connections, so I immediately
Sweet.
jump up in refresh rate and latency, if
Cool.
I'm wired. And so I did have that when I was, from my gamers out there, when I was Call of Duty crazy on my workstation. I would have that plugged in, because it was fast, and I do have short hotkeys and stuff on it that are very minimal. So the thing is, I like it small in the hand. It's not a big blocky thing, and we're coming from the old days, the Logitech, with the scroll mouse wheels and all
Right,
that stuff.
right.
I think I have like four of those in the
I
storage
think
right now.
if your doctor diagnoses you as Call of Duty crazy, you can get workers' comp. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay,
So
well,
check
especially,
it
I
out,
wonder
buddy.
if that's a thing for like game testers and stuff, like, but for
I'm
sure,
I'm 23 and I have carpal tunnel like a 65-year-old.
yeah.
Can
Well,
I
it's
get
like, okay,
compensation?
yeah, let's look at your workstation. Um, so yeah, my mouse is, man, it's minimal. It takes two double A's, and it does the Bluetooth connection, but it totally can be wired too. And I like it. And like I said, I like
Well,
Razer products.
I love the option. No wonder I was turned on by Razer products years ago, even though I've never owned one, because just giving consumers the option of going wired or wireless, that's when you really start to have a good product, in my humble opinion. When you don't make these design considerations in a vacuum, you're like, well, the use case scenario for our consumer could be a lot of things, right? And
Hmm.
they obviously have sat down and thought about that and created a product at an affordable price that lets you do it the way you want to do it. And I think that's a big deal.
100%. And so yeah, and so Razer's been really good about that, and they got four different options for their Razer mice, and mine's the Orachi 2. And I've had this one for a long time. Oh, so the other point is, what's great about it is it comes in this little, has a little carry case with it. So if I do go on travel and I want a mouse, it's not that hard to just pack it up and go. So that's the other part about it that's really cool, is that it's very versatile. I get to just take it with me. And so I'll include that in the links of mice that in like mine. I like it. I think the scroll wheel is very clean. I love the cool rigid design. It reminds me of like, like a really what is the really edgy Lamborghini. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's the one that's very like, I don't know,
Diablo?
futuristic, sharp lines. No, Diablo's always been, yeah, they're blocky, but they're not like um I'm gonna kill myself on this one. I'm gonna I know, uh it's called the it's like it looks more like a tacky one. And I'm trying to
Well, it's
remember
like
the
Japanese styling, sharp edges,
sharp edges, very, rigid.
almost confrontational. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So those ones are really, so it reminded me of that, of the Revoluton or whatever that it is. I don't know. It's a really cool high performance Lamborghini. But anyway, so it looks like it. So I don't know, that's my mouse. I think it's pretty minimal, but actually really cool. So if you want to check that out, I'll jump these links in with you as well. So you
Countach?
can kind of see those.
Is it a Lamborghini Countach? I'm not in front of a computer right now.
No.
Stuff popping up. Oh, damn.
The Aventador. I probably said that terribly, but yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I just came back. My headphones dropped out again. It's obviously time to stop using these headphones
Yeah.
because
No, the really high performance V12, the Lamborghini Aventador. That one's it kind of looks like that one. So if you check that out, you
sharp
Google that one, it's
edges
very
really,
sharp
really
edges,
okay.
lots of air like flows through it. Anyways, that's my mouse. It's super fast, right? So
Well, this is not
and
about
then
Lamborghinis. It's about your mouse. Who would have known?
yeah, right. And then I've also had some really expensive office chairs in the past. I'd say the one I have now is very much like I used to have this really great Recaro one.
Oh,
Like
nice, nice.
Recaro that makes the racing
Yeah,
seats.
yeah, fancy
Yeah,
stuff.
I made a office chair, and I love that
Oh,
office chair for
sweet. I
so
didn't know they
long.
did that.
Yeah, yeah. Some of these top brands, they make some interesting stuff. You know 'em for certain things, right? Like, if you know that brand, you know that they make the racing seats that go in Ferraris and Lamborghinis and
Oh, yeah.
different, and different sports cars. If you want to add that package or buy the custom seats, amazing seats, by the way. If you have a fast car and you want like a really good seat upgrade, or Recaro seats, but they make a desk chair, and I had it for a long time. I love that thing. And I just love the way it like kind of like gripped around you, and really you sat in it and you felt comfortable. And so I found a one that was when that one finally died, because eventually like the piston and the air thing,
Right.
compression that keeps it going up and down will eventually just bottom down. It
Yeah.
wouldn't go up again.
After 3,000 hours, it can only do so
the
much, right?
the
Like, let's be
craziest thing you'll
real.
ever do is when you shop for a office chair and you are shopping by hours, like sitting hours. Like, that I didn't even know this was a thing until I met a good friend of mine, engineer. I kind of just bought office chairs in the past because like they either looked cool or I like sitting in them. And then I have a good engineer friend that one time we were shopping, I think for an upgrade for everybody in the office. And he was like, "This is not an easy task." I was like, "What do you mean?" And so he just pulls out like all of this like scientific data of like, how many hours your butt's going to sit into it, and they're all rated. And I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like, so
Yeah,
just so you know, if you want to find a really good
true,
office chair, you actually need to look at the amount of hours that it's been tested,
true,
allegedly, to be sat in.
true, true. I killed a Herman Miller, and I thought you could not kill a Herman Miller, that it was indestructible like a 57 Buick or something. And I just spent so much time in that sucker that I think I killed it, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
$1,350 for a plush office chair, and it took me a few years, but yeah, I eventually killed it.
That goes back to your conversation about if people that with the mouse and you could get workman's comp. I wonder if your claim would be invalidated if you have too many hours clocked in your chair, more than the average amount,
Or you're
right?
too
Like kind of
fat,
like your
you
car.
know? They're like, Mr.
Yeah,
Robbins, what is your weight? Oh, sorry, you exceed the limit. Your claim is
yeah.
rejected.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you're not. Your seat is not graded for your weight limit,
That's right.
sir. Oh man, but yeah, he's a really cool office chair that so far hasn't died on me. Been for a couple years, so I like that. It's very cold and has like a carbon fiber kind of like stitching to it.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel again with my fast mouse. I feel like I'm racing at my desk. That's my setup, man. I have a really good white clean desktop that has a plug in USB port like power supply that was already in it.
Oh, built into the desk?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
nice,
found a
nice.
guy that was offloading a bunch of stuff from a storage one time, I think a few years back, maybe during the pandemic, and he had three of these. So I have three of them in my house. I got two
Oh,
that are
wow.
my yeah, well, the workstation you saw next to it is another table, and that one's actually an art creative desk for my kids. I'll have to send you a picture. Well, not just the kids, I draw too. So it's our big art station. Everything
Okay.
from every color pencil, marker, and art supply is all there. For creative stuff, for creative time, creative space. And then I have another one. um I think right now it's actually dismantled. It's downstairs. Because I at one point had like three desks set up in a bedroom, in the spare bedroom where that was my office space, but that was a little excessive. So I like a lot of desk space. But yeah, man, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, you gotta, and I like the point that you bring up that you got to be comfortable with it, you know, and
Yeah.
so that's what I really want to stress to listeners is that there is truly no right or wrong here, and that sounds like a cop out almost, but no, you gotta, check out LoomCube, but maybe nothing excites you, so don't assume that's a solution, you know. Uh, Check out Uplift Desk. That's who makes my elevator desk, my standing desk. Um, but they might not turn you on. They might not satisfy your budget. They might not satisfy your style preferences, right? But the good news is there are so many options out there for all of the elements that John and I are discussing. If for keyboards, tons of options. For mice, tons of options. For standing desks, lots of options. For monitors, for lighting, LED lighting, lots of options, right? You can dial this in exactly where you want in terms of your budget and your work habits. And that's really the good news, don't be afraid of what we're talking about based on, oh, I don't have a lot of money. That's okay. You can do this on the cheap. You really can.
You so can. And I say, even if it's just getting a couple cheaper things to kind of find what you like, at least aesthetically or tactile feel right. Like that's why I bought the mechanical keyboard that I bought. It's a little less footprint. It's a little more compact. But I thought, hey, let me not spend a ton of money on that one yet, because then when I really I'll know then that that $100 one that looks like an old ancient key, typewriter with the round keys and everything it'll feel good too. I'll be able to actually work on it, because let me tell you, like the last thing you want to do is buy this really like Porsche level tile, component, whatever that is. And then you spend a week with it and you're like, I don't even like this thing. That would not be good.
Right,
You
right.
feel buyer's remorse will set in, and
Yeah, for
you
real.
know.
Especially when you spend a lot of money, because
Oh man.
yeah, yeah. I
So
remember.
yeah, buy it cheap first, right?
Yeah, I remember my Loom Cube lights. I'd use them for evening lighting after the sun went down a few times, and I was like, yeah, these are cool, but I borderline got into buyer's remorse. I just felt I'd overspent and everything. And then I had a client meeting that we did on Microsoft Teams, and it was completely dark outside because they were on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast in terms of time zones. So I was like, oh, wow, I actually need my LED lights. And so I just flipped them around, turned them on. It took me like all of 10 seconds. And got into the video conference and it looked great. It looked better than I'd ever seen it before, even with
Yeah.
natural light. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is why I spent this money. And the idea of buyer's remorse just totally went out the window because I was extremely happy with it. And I think that's one thing that as
Hmm.
IT professionals we need to realize. And again, I said this earlier, but you don't have to be a remote worker. You are on a certain regularity going to be participating in video conferencing, right?
Mm.
And when you do so, do you want to? Let's say there's 8 people in that meeting. Do you want to have the worst lighting of those 8 people? I don't. Do you? I don't. I don't want to look like the chump in the room, right? So I'm like, okay, my career is kind of important. It's how I pay my kids' tuition. So if I got to put down $200 or $300 in order to just solve this problem and get on with my life, then I think that's a worthy investment. And I
It
would,
is.
yeah, I would recommend to our listeners that you consider that approach, that attitude also, because it's just about focusing on your boss's headaches and your client's headaches in the end, right? Just
Yeah,
like
for sure.
because they hired you to help them solve their headaches. And if you can't do that as efficiently as possible, someone else is going to stand in and say, I can do that better than them. And they're going to take your job. And then nobody wants that, right?
True story. Yeah, I mean, if you're a professional, I think these things matter. I think, over time but I've met some professionals that are pretty minimal. They don't need much. They may not do much either. I don't know. I guess like at the same time, like I envy the person that doesn't need, I guess, all this stuff, because they've found a way for it to work on their capacity. Sometimes I sit back, I'm like, this is too much. And every time I move, right, it's like it's a thing. Or maybe I get tired of the space, I want to switch it up a little bit. I gotta undo all the wiring. I gotta,
Yep.
like really rethink how it's gonna be arranged. What didn't I like about it? It took a while to get to the arrangement that I'm at, I would say, which is weird and meticulous, but again,
Well,
it's about efficiency, it's about productivity, and that matters. So I'll take the trade-off.
no, I think it's a good point you bring up, John, because I think it's when you're trying to set up as I just kind of, again, clickbaitish headline, I labeled my article the ultimate workstation for technical writers.
Hmm.
It that takes experimentation. You're not going to reach ultimate status until you've experimented a bit, right? And that
Hmm.
experimentation might take you a month or two, and it might take you 2 or 3 years. When you finally say, this thing is not doing it for me, and I need to replace this thing, whether it's an LED light or a keyboard or a mouse or monitors or whatever. And again, it's very subjective. So you just gotta experiment, you gotta dial it in. But I'm glad you brought that up because I don't want listeners to think, you're just gonna look at a list of links by someone like you or me. Oh yeah, Loom Cube, standing desk. Here's a cool wireless keyboard. Yeah, I've got it. I'm ready to go. Right? No, please do not make that assumption because you're gonna you as you alluded to, John. You're gonna make investments where a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever down the road, you're going to say, you know what, regardless of the cost of this thing, it just really is not doing it for me. And I, and
Yeah.
I gotta replace it with a different solution.
Yep.
That's pretty regular. Yeah. You gotta, it's going to take you some money and it's going to take you some time, but the good the good message here is that I'm fairly confident that most of our listeners can improve their productivity, improve their efficiency, and improve their satisfaction with their daily workflow by just making some minor and often not very expensive changes to the workstation.
I think so. And I think keeping it cheap initially, finding out what works is a strong approach to figuring that out. And then obviously you save the bucks for the really nice stuff. Even when I'll share the links to the monitors I have. I didn't go crazy expensive. I didn't go 8K fastest,
Right.
refresh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just like, for what. um this was me making sure that two 27-inch screens like it makes sense for me. What if I spent $500 on each monitor? I got $1,000 in monitors. It turns out I don't need that much screen. Like, then what would I do? I just would have these screens that be trying to repurpose in my house. Let me tell you, from the earlier days of computers and kind of like geeking out on the more less, what did we used to have TVs wise, or monitors wise? We used to have like the older monitors, right? When they weren't CTV, maybe they were, but anyways,
But there were
which
tubes, they
mimic
weren't
this
flat. Yeah.
tubes, which mimic the TV monitor, right? So then you got to at least some thinner flat screen ones, but they never really exceeded higher than, let's say, 19-inch maybe at most would be a
Right.
massively
Right.
impressive, or you're hooking it straight up to a TV. I've had a lot of TVs I've hooked up as monitors. In my early days of Photoshop, I used a Vizio Plasma 42-inch as a computer
Oh,
monitor. I
nice.
just moved it further away from me and put it on a mount on the wall, but I used it as a computer monitor, and because it just was better than the monitors that they had out on the market, and it was a plasma. But if you think about it, like, that was like an obnoxious waste of a TV in some aspects. It was in the startup days, and it definitely paid for itself. But it was like what was best available at that time. Where now they have some crazy cool
Yep.
monitors. But do I need those? No, I don't need those right now. And then what's the difference between like a 27-inch, or maybe I get a bigger, 50-inch, or I just make it make sense for you. So like, even the ones I have, they're marginally affordable, I'd say, reliable. I've had both of them. I want to say my 27-inch wide I've had for at least almost 2 years, and the other one about a year. And I say no flickering, no power issues, no color degrading. I did my homework, so these are vetted at the mid-tier level. There are definitely tons of reviews and comments, and looking at like where the breakdowns were, and finding the ones that even if they were off brands, one made sense. So one is a brand name brand. It's the Dell one I have, which is my main wide curved, and then the other one, the
It's a
vertical one,
beautiful
because there's not
monitor.
actually,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of vertical ones. That's the other thing I found, is like not every monitor actually will go vertical orientation. So you got to look into that.
Right, right.
Yeah, you can't just assume that the monitor you have, because it could be mountable, will turn and actually make 20 the that vertical layout
Right.
orientation is available to you. They some aren't. Actually, a lot aren't. So that's also needle in a haystack stuff right there, is finding a reputable brand that provides a reliable vertical orientation monitor was a challenge. So my recommendations definitely come vetted, and like I said, they're pretty average, moderately priced. There's 700, 800, $900 monitors out there. That I think that you're a massive gamer at that level, and that's fine. Better than using TV, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I got my two 28-inch 4K monitors are Samsung, and
nice.
got them for like 200. I well, I'm very frugal. I was partially raised by my grandparents who lived through the Great Depression and World War II. So
Hmm.
I'm just hardwired to be frugal. And like I bought these on Amazon where the prices fluctuate, right? And sometimes they're $340 and sometimes they're $230. And I waited until they got down to $230 and then I jumped on them. And I was like, wow, for $460, I just got two really gorgeous monitors that just make my life work, just like these LumeCube LED lights, right? I turn them on and they do their job and I get through my day, and I'm really impressed by these things. So I just want listeners to understand that you can actually do this for like under $500 if you want to go with a dual monitor setup, because I've met a few people who were hesitant to make such a migration and upgrade in their workstation because they were just imagining that it would cost two or three or $4,000. And I'm like, wait, you just want to go from a 15-inch laptop to some sort of computer, maybe that 15-inch laptop hooked up to two 20 something inch 4K LEDs. No, you can do that for under $500 if you shop wisely. So
Hmm.
I just want people to know that, yeah, you can dial this in wherever you want, but if you need to make it within your budget, you can absolutely do that. And I did have to spend an extra $150 or so on my monitor mount, but it fully articulates. It lets them go vertical or horizontal. It lets them go up and down, left and right. It's a beautiful all metal machine. I went with the uplift desk model and just ordered it all at once. But it's there, right? You can do this major upgrade to your work environment for well under $1,000, including the mount. So this is something you
Yeah.
might want to think about, listeners.
And you know who will love you even more if it's on somebody else's budget is your workplace, because you can be like, hey, I found an affordable monitor
That's
that helps
true.
me get my job done better. Here's the receipt. I hope to see it on my next paycheck.
That's right, right. No, good point. Yeah, being fiscally frugal goes beyond our own wallets for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Those workplace expenses, sometimes they don't know which one are going to be best. And if you have the recommendation and you're saving them some money from something maybe they were looking at or they've already bought in the past, I think I've done that before. I've faced them and said, "Hey, I know that you had these monitors, but I found this one. It'll help my job better. It's actually 4 inches bigger, and it's $100 cheaper." And they're like,
Right, right.
"Okay, here's the card, or whatever." And so I think that's something to look at as well. Is that if you're in the professional workplace, most times it's reimbursable, especially if
Yeah,
you're at your
yeah.
work at
Good
home
point.
station.
Well, we are up on an hour, so I think we'll go ahead and we'll end this episode. And then we've got a couple more things to talk about here, like dopamine
Cool.
stacking, which I'm very curious about and really want to want you to be my teacher today, and I want to learn about that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to stuff that in this week's bonus episode. So this episode was a little mono-focused in terms of this was really all about the workstation. But I think that's appropriate because obviously the workstation is a lot of things. It's a desk, it's a keyboard, it's a mouse, it's a computer, it's one or more monitors, it's one or more LED lights. And you can go beyond that. I mean, if we had another 2 hours to talk, I would get all nerdy about my headphone amp, right?
Hmm.
And we could even talk headphone stands and blah blah. We just get really down into it. But I think if listeners have any takeaway, I hope it is that this is a very subjective pursuit. Like what works for me doesn't work for you, doesn't work for John. It's really all about you and your situation and your preferences. And this is the one place in life where you can just be a total narcissist and say, look, I got to do what I got to do. And that's true. And as long as you got the budget to do that, there's so many options. It's just a green field.
Have fun.
Exactly. Get what you want. It's beautiful. Check out Loom Cube, and you know, I'm sure we'll talk about more of this ahead. So thanks everybody for tuning in this week. This is the Curt and John Talk Tech and AI podcast. This is one of the rare weeks where I don't think we talked about AI at all.
No, no, that's okay.
Damn. Well, we'll talk AI maybe a little in the bonus episode, even though I'm most curious about dopamine stacking because I don't know why. It just sounds exciting. I've been watching Lost in Space on Netflix recently, blamming through that. And I'm like, yeah, anything high tech kind of gets me excited. So,
Beautiful. Can't wait to talk about it.
well, thank you to Mr. John Bailey from the Mindset Genesis in beautiful Las Vegas for participating in this week's main episode. We will talk to you in the bonus episode. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.